Okay, so as I said in the Volume 1 video, I'd already finished RWBY Volume 2 in addition to Volume 3, so I want to go ahead and talk about Volume 2. And I haven't started Volume 4 yet. I want to get my video on Volume 2 done, then it might be a day or two before I finish like getting all my notes and thoughts together for Volume 3. Then I will make the Volume 3 video, and when I'm caught up on that, I will start watching Volume 4. Before I say anything else, I have to show off my RWBY shirt. Now, you might think this is not a RWBY shirt, this is a Pikachu shirt. However, red, white, the tips of the ears are black, and Pikachu himself is yellow. So I'm like, that's really weirdly fitting. That's kind of fucking perfect. So I might try and like wear this shirt whenever I talk about RWBY. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to wear it if like it's dirty. I'll see if I can find other shirts that are kind of similar to this. But let's actually talk about Volume 2 proper. My general reaction to it, especially starting it right after I finished Season 1 and then watching the rest of the season the next day, is that Season 2, and like I said, I'm going to call them volumes and seasons pretty much interchangeably, it's the same I felt when I played Thousand Year Door almost immediately after playing the original Paper Mario. I like the original. I think it's good, but I think there's just some jank here, and like the product shines through. That was a weird way of saying that. The product shines through. It's a very good experience despite the janky areas. And while the sequel has its own problems, it feels like such a marked improvement. And for me, like the aspects of Volume 2 that make it such a marked improvement. Number one, there's no non-revs anymore. And I noticed that like immediately into the first episode, I was like, oh my god, there's actually fucking people in the background. No weird silhouette-y, shadowy people. Oh my goodness, this means like I'm not giggling anytime like I'm seeing a crowd shot. Oh, this is so much better. On top of that, I noticed that the models themselves just kind of looked sharper. Like they just looked better. And I feel like the actual animation as well, especially in non-fights, just also looks better. Like it feels like there was a bit more of a budget now for Season 2, and I really appreciated that. There's actually focus now on Team RWBY, not just on Ruby or Roa, because I guess there is some on Weiss, and Blake gets shit at the very end of Season 2. Here it really feels like every member of Team RWBY gets something. There is some aspect of their character that gets some focus, or like there's some kind of plot arc that's being set up for them. One, the other, or both, which is really good. They do get some much needed character depth. I think the pacing feels a lot better, a lot stronger, and there seems to be a much stronger sense of actual plot and progression. So getting into that plot and progression. Number one, the big plot of the season is stopping Torchwick. It is, this dude is doing some shady shit behind the scenes, and I'll talk about that when I get to the Jank. But it's like, but we feel like we need to do something about it. So let's use our resources and our connections. RWBY talks to her friend Penny. I'm maybe gonna get my hair cut again. It keeps falling into my face and I hate it. Weiss looks into her family's records to see like what are some areas that have been hit hard by dust thieves and shit. Blake uses the fact that she is a faunus to sneak into White Fang rallies and just like, all right, if these are Torchwick's new goons, what are they after? Where are some other locations they might meet? And Yang going to her old buddy Junior and going, hey, remember how we're friends? No, you grabbed my dick, beat the shit out of me and my men, and trashed my nightclub. But we're friends, give me information. Okay. And it works. They do their investigating, and then they find out, okay, there's a base somewhere in the southeast, so we need to get there and investigate. And they end up going on a mission to investigate. And while there, they find Torchwick, they find a lot of his White Fang droogs, and they find a big-ass train, and then the train goes off, and that's what leads into the climax of, okay, this train is full of bombs and is trying to like blow up the tunnel so the Grimm can go into the tunnel, into the city, and kind of bypass a lot of the defenses and just cause chaos, fuck shit up, and kill people to instill more panic and distrust. But they stop all that shit. Torchwick gets arrested, and they're like, okay, we succeeded. We also kind of failed because we didn't stop the train, and an undisclosed amount of people were hurt in that attack that we weren't able to stop from happening. But we were able to mitigate the damages, and we did a lot of it without telling the adults. Like, we kept them out of the loop, and I just don't really understand why they were kept out of the loop. Cause it's not like in Harry Potter where, you know, in half the books are like, oh shit, we need to tell Dumbledore. Oh, well, Dumbledore is literally gone, and the people you're trying to talk to are actively not helpful or not listening to you. Here they're just like, yeah, we're not even gonna tell them. We can do this on ourselves. I think that's really dumb. I feel like one of the big themes of the season is, I mean, because it's like literally lyrics in the opening, is we can't just sit on our asses and wait. That's not a lyric in the opening, but it's the theme. It's like we can't just sit around and wait until they think we're ready. It's like, you know, if we can take action, we need to go ahead and take action. Sure, I get that, but what's wrong with telling Ozpin, like, hey, so we all know that this Torchwick dude is an asshole. Here's what we also know about him. Here's some of, like, the military tech that he's been able to acquire. He's got this fucking mech suit. We don't know where exactly he got. I mean, they might know that, like, yeah, he was able to take it from Ironwood. Like, this dude, this is the kind of shit he has. These are the people he's targeting. He wants to target, like, the schools, the government, all that kind of shit. So, and then I feel like if they were to tell Ozpin that, he'd be like, okay, the Vital Festival is coming up, and if they really want to spread panic, they really want to weaken, you know, people's trust in the schools and the government and the military and shit, they're going to attack the Vital Festival. So we need to make sure, like, we're, like, really fucking prepared for this shit, because this Torchwick dude doesn't seem like he's the guy on top. He seems like he's following someone else's orders. It's like, okay, like, what else do you know? We know kind of this is how much dust. Like, from Weiss's record, like, company records, this is what we're kind of estimating. Like, that's a lot of fucking dust. Okay, so I know this is going to be something big. Yeah, this is, like, where the hideout is. We think we're not exactly sure where, but it's like we infiltrated one of the rallies, and this is the information that we were able to get. Like, shit, we need to do something about this. Instead, they don't tell Ozpin anything for most of the season, and then it's after Cinder's infiltration where RWBY gets caught trying to stop it. They're like, okay, Miss Rose, what the fuck happened? Who was this person? Did you see their face? Did you hear them talk? And RWBY is just like, I don't want to... She's actively avoiding giving them information, and then at the very end, she's like, oh wait, no, she said something about the Southeast, and then Oz goes like, cool. Thanks for letting me know. And I remember watching it and thinking, finally, you're fucking telling the adults, the people who have actual, like, training to handle shit and the resources to handle shit, you're telling them what's going on. Again, why didn't you do it sooner? Did you not think you could trust Oz? Now, I know that becomes kind of an issue in later seasons, but I'm like, at this point in the show, they have no reason not to trust Ozpin. It really just comes across as a bunch of kids going, let's do it ourselves. Why? Because we want to be the heroes and we want to take the credit, so let's not tell anybody else. The only time they do is when they kind of get caught with something and RWBY goes, here, let me kind of let this slip, and they'll, like, let me go. And then it works. And that doesn't work for me. Like, it makes the main characters look way more selfish than I think they're supposed to, or maybe it is intentional and it's kind of like an early hint that, like, yeah, you know, your heroes aren't as good as you think they are or as they should be. Maybe they're like, they want to be good people, and like a thing they kind of come to realize in season 2 is like, you know, what we want is not what's important. What's important is, as a huntsman or a huntress, which for them they'd all be huntresses, it's to help the people. Their safety and their peace is what comes first above our specific desires. Cool. That's good. But man, like, just not telling people anything, I feel like y'all really fumbled the bag here, Team RWBY. And like I said, I was going to talk about that later when I got to the Jank, because to me it is one of the big Jank parts of the season, but I already talked about it now, so sure. Other things that do happen in the plot, there's a school dance, because it's not the Triwizard Tournament without the Yule Ball. I mean, come on. And essentially it goes, Blake doesn't want to go to some stupid dance because he's like, we need to do this shit. I need to, like, the White Fang is very personal to me. I need to get this stopped. And like I said, like, them not telling people shit, I think is kind of dumb. I get it with Blake, because this is something it's not just, hey, we should do this because it's cool and, you know, we can get, like, the glory or whatever. It's like, no. This is very personal to her because she used to be part of the White Fang. And I guess you could argue, it's like, well, the reason we're not telling anybody is we don't want to bust Blake for what she did in the past. But I'm also like, do y'all really think Oz doesn't know that? Because there's this one flashback conversation with Blake where it's very fucking clear he knows exactly what her backstory is. So, again, I can understand if, like, you don't trust Ironwood enough because he just showed up, he's from another country and shit. I feel like they could trust Oz enough. But anyways, Blake doesn't want to go to the dance because she wants to do shit. John wants to ask out Weiss. I like to say that he's failing for Weiss because he's falling for her, but he's also failing to attract her in any meaningful way. And there's this one conversation, I believe this was in Volume 2 and not in Volume 3, where they're in a class together, and he keeps talking to her, and he's like, hey, Weiss, you know, I was thinking, you know, the two of us could, like, go to this concert, and then maybe after we could go to the mall, and then, like, we could hang out, and then you could go to the dance with me. And Weiss is just not saying anything. She's literally just, like, staring at the clock as he's talking. And then the bell rings, and she gets up and starts walking away. He's like, wait, like, did you hear anything I said? No. Yes. And then just walks away. Like, that was funny as fuck. And honestly, she is well within her right to reject him like that, because I feel like at this point she's made it clear that she just doesn't like him that way. Arguably doesn't like him, period. But he keeps trying, and I feel like there's a point where that stops being kind of adorable or acceptable. It's like, okay, now you're kind of just harassing her. So if she wants to shut you down hard, she can do that. But John is failing for Weiss. Weiss has a crush on Sun's buddy Neptune, who, I don't know, he's kind of okay. I'll talk about him in a little bit. But, like, there's that shit, and then Yang and Weiss are also on, like, the committee to make the dance happen, and there's that, and then Ruby's like, man, if one of my friends doesn't want to go, like, now I don't even want to go. It just feels like the whole vibe is ruined, but then Blake goes, and everyone has a good time at the dance, and John and Pyrrha do some shit. Like, I'll talk about that when I get to the character shit, but that's the dance. It's nothing, like, huge, but it's this kind of mini arc in, like, the middle or so of the season, and honestly, like, it's pretty fun. It's pretty cute. And the other thing going on is that the Triwizard Tournament is going to be happening pretty soon. It's something looming in the back. People are gathering, and while people are gathering, Cinder and her droogs, Emerald and Mercury, are working on their currently undisclosed plan. Now I'll talk about that, my issues with their plan when I get to season 3. But that's basically the plot, and it's like, yeah, like, here's something that we're building up. Here's a cute little thing in the background. But the shit with Torchwick, like I said, like, I wish they were actually talking to someone about it, because that makes sense to me. I feel like it's an actual plot, and you can feel it progress and build up to shit. Whereas in season 1, it's just shit kind of happens for a bit, and then shit kind of happens for a bit, and it's like, okay, here's just John episodes, and boy, his arc is dog shit. And then not even really a climax, just kind of, here's the last episode. This has an actual climax with both the train fight and kind of just a big Muso game section in the final episode, which I guess as good a segue as any to let's start talking about the fights. And this time I think I actually wrote them down in order. Don't quote me on that, or do quote me on that. Maybe I'm completely wrong. First off is the food fight, which is one of the things I remembered from RWBY, is that in like the first episode of season 2, there's just this big food fight in the cafeteria. I remember it being really fun and enjoying it. I didn't remember how far they went with it, where almost every character like picks, like gets a thing of food that's similar to their weapon. Pyrrha uses spears, so she gets a giant fucking loaf of bread and starts using it as a spear. Blake at one point, instead of having her kunai with chain, she just gets this long thing of sausages that she's just like using as a fucking whip. Yang, instead of gauntlets, just gets a couple of turkeys on her hand and starts punching shit with them. Nora gets like rips a pole out of the wall, slams it into a watermelon, and starts using a sledgehammer. This shit is awesome. There's so much energy. There's so much just dumb creative shit happening. It just starts with like, throw a little bit of throwing food between each other. Like, it's a good time. And then when Sun and Neptune go into the cafeteria, where Sun's like, dude, I gotta introduce you to my new friends. They're cool as fuck. Just crazy bastards. Can't wait for you to meet them. The entire cafeteria is gone. There's this giant fort of tables with Team Juniper standing on top of it, with Nora at the top declaring that she is king of the castle. And Team RWBY tried to dethrone her. I'm like, oh, this is peak stupid, and I love it. This is so fun. It's so silly. It's so creative. And there's a part where Pyrrha, because she can control poles, she starts fucking like throwing cans of soda at people. And then also, like, as the soda's exploding, it's super fucking colorful, and it's awesome. I think at one point Nora knocks Yang like into the fucking troposphere. My one it's one, but it has kind of multiple problems with it, though, is there's nothing that RWBY really does in the fight. Like, she kind of finishes it at the very end, and I'm like, wait, she made like a big tornado. Wait, so does she have like wind powers? What? How exactly does her power work? Is it just I'm really fast? Is it she can teleport? Because it usually comes across as almost like short distance teleportation. But there, she actually made like a little mini tornado. So was it like she can control wind and it makes her really fast? Is that a maiden thing? Because her mom's name is Summer Rose. Like, I never got that far, so like I don't know if RWBY can do that, because that's not what the Silver Eyes is. But I mean, you could probably have that and be a bit like, I don't know. She doesn't, there's no food that she uses to resemble Crescent Rose, and granted, I don't know what food would. But on the one hand, I'm kind of like, RWBY didn't do too much in that fight, which kind of sucks. But at the same time, it gave a lot of other characters a time to shine, so I'm alright with it. To me, a bigger problem, though, is John did nothing in that fight. Like, it's not even like, yeah, he was kind of jobbing a bit. It's like, no, like, I don't think I saw him fight at all. He just kind of got hit by a couple things. And given that he's the leader of Team Juniper, and in season 1 they try to establish like, yo, he's the leader because he can like call shots and come up with strategies and shit. I would have liked to have seen that in this fight, of him specifically saying shit like, all right, like, we need to keep the high ground. Nora, you should do this. Pyrrha, you should do this. And it's like, you don't want to make it so they're completely reliant on John, because you still want these characters to feel strong and competent. but I also want to feel like John's place in the party is earned. And in this fight, I don't quite know if it was. In their first fight in season 3, I think they do a good job with that, though. But even with those problems, this is probably my favorite fight in the season. Possibly my favorite fight in the show proper so far, because it's just so dang fun. Specifically, the reason why I say the show proper is because I don't know how much the trailers count as part of the show, because the events are still canon, but they're not, like, they were specifically called trailers and not, like, episode 1 or, like, character prologues, even though they kind of are. If we are counting that as also, like, yeah, this is 1000% part of the canon in the show, any fight or, like, line of dialogue can count for, like, best shit or whatever, I still think the red trailer is the best. I think it's just, I love basically everything about it. But the food fight's dope as shit. After that, the next fight, I believe, is the fight on the highway, where Torchwick is in a mech, and he's on a fucking highway chasing Blake and Sun. Yang and Neptune show up on a bike. Ruby and Weiss, I don't even remember how they showed up, but Ruby and Weiss end up being there. So they're fighting this thing, and then at one point, Sun and Neptune just get fucking bitch slapped out of the fight. I think that's the only time the two of them fight in season 2, because they're there during the Muso fight, but they just kind of show up with their junior detective badges, and then the Iron Fleet, actually, I don't know what I'm supposed to call Ironwood's army. I don't know if it has a name, but given that his name is Iron, and it's a fleet of ships. I like calling it the Iron Fleet. Just a little bit of Game of Thrones reference, I guess. Anyways, but like that shows up, and then everything kind of ends. So I'm like, I didn't get to see Sun do any of his cool, I have a bow staff, now I have nunchucks, now I have a flintlock pistol shit. This is kind of the only thing he does, and he's knocked out of it really fucking quick. That sucks. But then you get this lengthy section of Team RWBY fighting Torchwick in a mech, and the entire time, RWBY's just like, okay, this formation, go, boom, 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 like, alright, checkmate, go, which is like, oh, that's Weiss and Blake, because chess is white and black. Bumblebee, that's Yang and Blake, because white and black. Like, shit like that, I'm like, I'm really liking this. I like the names for the moves because they just kind of make sense. I like seeing the team have really strong coordination together. And given the fact that RWBY is the team leader, and it's something, again, kind of like what they were trying to do with John, during the slingshot thing, that's kind of what they're trying to establish, is the reason she's the team leader is because she's the one that can really call the shots and come up with strategies. And consistently throughout the fight, she's like, okay, this is... it implies that they've been working on this shit, which I loved. And she's able to say, okay, we need to do this one, now we need to do this one, now this one, blah, 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 blah. And it's fucking seamless. And it's awesome. And then it ends with a Neapolitan sighting, who I believe was like in the episode before, and like of course it's a silent cameo, she doesn't say anything. She shows up at the very end, is able to get Torchwick out of there, and that's how that fight comes to an end. But there is this one really cool part where Blake is just fucking swinging Yang around like a flail. Like, I thought that was neat. I thought that was really neat. Oh, the next couple fights are both Pyrrha fights. The first is when she solos Team Cardinal. And the way it's shot is like she's just kind of walking forward like she's about to be walking into like an arena, and then it's like cut to her like fighting a dude, and then like because I think it like starts with her legs, and then it shows like a different part of her, and then cuts back to the fight and shit. As I was watching it, I was like, this dead ass feels like a Smash Bros trailer. Like you're hyping up who the character is, but not like fully showing their face yet. But people probably can recognize who the fuck they are. And they're like doing cool shit, and then cut to that, and cut to that, and cut to that, and cut to that. And then like Pyrrha can control poles, and then like fucks people up and shit. I'm like, this was a Smash trailer. I think, was that before Smash Ultimate came out? No, yeah, it was for sure before Smash Ultimate came out. I think it was around when Smash 4 was coming out. So Smash trailers were already a thing, if my timeline is correct. And I think it's really fucking neat. And she just solos this entire team. And given the fact that they were just kind of boring assholes in Season 1, it's pretty fucking satisfying to watch. Then she has a duel with Mercury, which doesn't last very long, but I have to shout out the way he fights. Like, he just kicks people. Like, what is his weapon? It's just his fucking shoes. And then he can, like, kick bullets into the air and shit. I'm like, this is pretty cool. I mean, it's no, like, Crescent Rose or anything. We're like, I kind of dig it. I actually get really hyped whenever Mercury fights. He doesn't throw hands, he throws feet. I wish I had read enough One Piece to really be able to make, like, a Sanji joke. But unfortunately, I don't really know much about how... I know he kicks shit, but I don't know enough of, like, Sanji's moves to say anything. But I do think Mercury fights are really cool. During the dance, Cinder infiltrates the school. She's like, okay, cool. Everyone's distracted with the Yule Ball, so I'm gonna go over here and do some shit. And she does, and, like, she basically, like, ninja fights a couple guards, and it's pretty okay. And she has this very, very short fight with RWBY, which doesn't really last long enough for me to be like, yo, this is really cool or anything. But the little bits of things that Cinder does, where she'll, like manipulating glass and shit, or, like, she'll throw, like, a little bit of fire, and then, like, go into, like, her arrows. It's cool. Like, I remember talking a couple weeks ago, it was Elf Show episode 9, when Stark is fighting that one chick, who, her whole fighting style is like, I can mimic things that I've seen, which also ends up being a thing in RWBY, shout out to Velva, where, like, she'll make an axe, and then, like, she'll swing the axe, and then she'll turn it into a sword, and then, like, do shit with the sword, like, how seamless it was, and I thought it was like, that's super cool. Cinder was doing a little bit of that in the RWBY fight. It was so short that I couldn't really appreciate it, but the little bit I saw was like, that is pretty cool. When they go into the city ruins, like, try to find the base, they fight some Grimm. I don't really remember it, because it was less of, like, here's a fight, and, like, here's a bit of a montage, like, they're doing some fighting. And then, I don't remember the name of the professor, I just called him the doctor or the doc. Will be like, hey, Weiss, why the fuck do you want to be a huntress? Fight for a little bit. Yang, same question, fight for a little bit. Blake, same question, blah, blah, blah. Like, it wasn't really much of a fight. It was honestly just more of character depth shit, which I thought was really good. After that, we get to the train, which is, like, this is the first part of the climax, where they're on a train and they're realizing, oh, this thing is slowly exploding. We need to stop the train, and they don't. But as they're going, I believe it was RWBY and the Doc are just kind of fighting some of the White Fang droogs, and the Doc finally uses his weapon, which I couldn't really tell exactly what it was, but he's basically using a baseball bat and just, like, knocking big fireballs at shit. Excuse me, which at one point includes RWBY's dog. I'm definitely going to talk about the dog later. But he's doing that. I don't really remember RWBY doing much. The other three, so WWBY, sneak onto the train. And they go for a bit, and then Neapolitan is waiting there, and Yang's like, okay, guys, I fucking got this. And it's a little weird, because the way that part feels and, like, the way it's written makes it come across as though Yang's like, okay, I've been waiting to fight you, I've got some unfinished business, let's go. Which I kind of get, because, like, you know, they were fighting Torchwick, Neo showed up and helped Torchwick get away, so, like, I guess there's a little bit of unfinished business, but it almost made it feel like there was something a little, like, a more deeper, like, disdain for each other, like, there was this rivalry that just wasn't quite there. So that happens, and then they move forward for a little bit, and then there's just a random dude with a chainsaw, and Weiss is like, I can take this, you go forward, Blake. And she goes forward and she fights Torchwick. So Blake versus Torchwick isn't really much of a fight. She just kind of kicks his ass. You're like, oh, okay, that was That was easy. I mean, I kind of get, like, Torchwick's not really much of a fighter, but that was easy. Weiss is fighting a dude with a chainsaw, and it's actually pretty cool. It's pretty fun. But Weiss being Weiss, she jobs, and she ends up losing. And even that, like, there's a part where, like, she's falling down, and the dude starts, like, swinging his chainsaw, and then it cuts away. And then the next time it cuts to Weiss, she just, like, gets knocked forward and flies, like, through a train door. And I'm like she flies into the next car, and I'm like, wait a second. I'm pretty sure his chainsaw was revved, so I don't think that's just a, bam, he hit her, like, with a baseball bat. No. Shouldn't she be, like, cut in half? Or something? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like, man, I really wanted Weiss to die here, but I'm also like, I mean, shouldn't she have taken substantial damage from the fucking chainsaw? Rather than, I don't know, she just kind of got knocked forward and got the wind knocked out of her? I think that should have been worse. Oh, okay, but I mean, most of the chainsaw fight was pretty cool. Then you get Yang and Neapolitan, where Yang gets fucking soloed and does no damage. She is trying her best. She is trying her damnedest, but every attack either misses, gets blocked, or is so seamlessly shrugged off that I don't think she actually did anything. Like, I remember there's this one, like, my brain just stopped thinking of words. But there's, like, this one exchange where they're just, like, doing hand-to-hand shit. And, like, it looks like she finally gets a hit, and Neapolitan, like, doesn't really stumble or, like, stagger. She just kind of takes it, does a backflips a couple times, sits on a nearby crate, crosses her legs, and then just gives Yang this look like, whenever you're ready to start, sweetheart, just let me know. I'll be here waiting. And it's so savage. Like, she comes in 3 flavors. Chocolate, strawberry, and bad bitch, because nothing about this character is vanilla. The fact that she doesn't say a word and talks more shit than the entire cast combined is really impressive, because every fucking expression is so hilariously smug and condescending. It's gold. It's like, yeah, there's a reason this was a character I remembered very well. She has, I don't know, maybe 7 total minutes of screen time between volumes 2 and 3. And even that feels like an overestimation, but she genuinely left a really big impression, and I gotta shout that out. Also, I'm just a sucker for an umbrella as a weapon. I just think it's really fucking neat. So after that happens, like, yeah, the train explodes and shit. They end up in the city. There's Grimm everywhere, and then the finale is a big Muso game. There is this one really cool part where Ruby slams her scythe into the ground and then just starts kicking Grimm with it. She kind of like is almost like using it as a crank to go around and like beat the shit out of things like that. That was fun. That was like, I was like, okay, we're approaching Symphogear levels with this one. Like that one's dope. There's a part where John fights a big ass monster by himself, and then Pierre is like, yes, like he's getting better. Our training is working. That's my man. I'm like, I like that shit. Yeah, I don't remember Sun and Neptune doing anything. I think like some of the teachers show up, because I think Glinda showed up. I don't remember specifically what she did. But there's a part in the climax that's just, it lives in my head rent-free for good and bad reasons. And it's when Team Coffee shows up. So for reference, in Volume 1, Velvet the Bunny Girl is part of this team. That they're supposed to be like more like respected elderly student. I don't want to say elderly, but like upperclassmen. Which is why I'm like, yeah, in hindsight, the fact that she's just like getting picked on in Volume 1, and the fact that these guys have the cojones to pick on like an upperclassman, I almost kind of respect it. But then you're also like, where the fuck is her team? Because, like, the motherfuckers I saw here and in the next season don't seem like they would take that lying down. Like, that's weird. But they show up. Two of them, I don't remember their names. It's like Hisashi and Fox, I think. Like, they do kind of a couple cool things. And then it focuses on Coco, the team leader, who, when I look at her design, I'm like, I think that's just a hipster RWBY. Like, it looks like RWBY's face, but they gave her a beret, a scarf, sunglasses, and I mean, honestly, I think she wears it well. I think it looks like a really cool outfit. And there's just, like, quite a bit of the climax is focused on this character. Her fighting style is she has a briefcase and is hitting shit with a briefcase, which I honestly wasn't super getting into. I'm like, I mean, interesting weapon, I guess, but okay. Then it turns into a minigun, and I remembered the briefcase minigun. And that part is cool. I mean, like, yeah, like it's like when you see like old gangster movies and then you got like the violin case, but it's a Tommy gun because the Tommy gun is inside it, which is cool classic shit. Like, yeah, we took that a step further and it's a fucking minigun. I like that. I think that's fun. Here's what's weird. This is the climax of the season, and a decent amount, like a pretty notable amount of time feels like it's focused on this character doing shit. And it doesn't feel earned. Now, let me give a couple examples in universe to kind of explain what I mean. In season 1's climax, with when they're just kind of fighting a bunch of White Fang dudes, and I think like an airship, or it's like a helicopter, we get to see Sun fight, and we get to see Penny fight. These are characters who have been introduced to the audience and the characters earlier in the season. We know that both of them can fight because they're here for the tournament, but we haven't seen what they can do yet. So, the fact that now we're in the climax, let's show you what the two of them can do. This dude's got trick weapons out the ass, and she's a robot that's doing weird, crazy shit. It feels very much earned, like it's a bit built up throughout the season, and it's also kind of giving you a taste for something later, because you know, as per the tournament, I'm gonna be seeing them fight later. And we do get a fight with Sun in the tournament, and we do get a couple fights with Penny in the tournament. So it feels like there's build-up, payoff, and then a little bit more payoff down the road. In the Volume 3 climax, there's this notable little chunk of time dedicated to showing how Velvet fights. This is a character. We've seen her. This is a character. This is a character. Don't catch you slipping. You see her in Volume 1 and have no idea what the fuck she can do. You see her a couple times in Volume 2. And there's specifically a part during this whole Muso game where she almost fights, and Coco says, no, not yet. Like, you need to save that shit. So it does put something in the audience's mind, like, oh, okay, I want to know what she can do, because it's probably something fucking cool. So when you then get to it, it's been built up. And you see her a couple times, like, taking pictures of people. And by people, I mean, like, she just kind of takes pictures of their weapons. And what she does in the climax is, I can now create somebody's weapon, like a fucking light projection of it, and start doing shit. And I noticed specifically with, like, Ruby and Weiss, I was like, those are shots from the Red and White trailer. That's so fucking cool. Like, this is a character who, like, you don't know what the fuck she can do. And when you finally get it, like, it's been built up, and I thought it was really satisfying. And it honestly feels like a really good, like, culmination of this whole Beacon arc. And then in Season 2, you have Coco, who is not built up at all. And she does get a fight in Season 3 where she completely jobs. So it's not like, man, like you gotta know how she fights because later she does some cool shit. I'm like, no, she really doesn't. Like, I don't hate the fact that I don't hate the scene. I really don't. Again, the briefcase minigun is cool, but I'm like watching it and thinking, why is there so much time in the climax dedicated to this character who like showed up out of nowhere? Like, is she just like a fan, like a fan's OC that like won a contest or something? Like, maybe she is. I don't know. But that's how it felt because it didn't feel natural. Whereas with Sun and Penny it did, and I think with Velvet it did as well. And again, that's one of my janks. I feel like I've touched on a lot of the jank already, so I'll be able to kind of speed through it. But there's that. Those are the fights. Yeah, for me, the food fight is easily my favorite. It's just so dang fun. It's just so dang creative. I mean, not to say that throughout a lot of these fights, I was just kind of going, oh, that sucks. But I was, like, grinning the entire time during that first fight. I'm like, this is the shit I want to see. Thank you. So actually getting into the cast. I have to start with Blake, because Blake feels like she's the main character of Season 1. And I really like that. Not to throw any shade toward RWBY, but I kind of like how it's, yeah, in Season 2, it feels like we're really focusing on another member of the cast, especially because, A, she didn't get a whole lot throughout most of Season 1, but the ending of Season 1 was like, all right, we're really trying to focus on her now, give her some shit, and show that this issue going on, this plot, is really personal for her. And that's another aspect that I do, something I really like. I was a member of the White Fang, because I believed in what they stood for. And then, when Adam took over, I saw the corruption, both in Adam himself and in the organization and beliefs I came to love. So, I left. Because it didn't sit right with me anymore. But the fact that I just ran away and didn't do anything doesn't sit right with me either. I have to fix this because these are my people, but I also feel like I could have done more to help them, and I didn't. And she is driven to the point of, she's driven to the point of her own detriment, where it's clear, like, she is not sleeping, her grades are slipping, her social, like, skills with her friends are slipping. She's not doing well because she is that motivated, and I really like it. Again, it's like with the rest of Team RWBY, I'm like, you guys can talk to Oz. You should talk to Oz. And yeah, Weiss is like, guys, we're fucking first-year students. This is way above our pay grade. We're not ready for this. This is dumb. And I like that there is someone in the party going, no, like, why aren't we telling anyone? But I think from Blake's perspective of, like, again, this is so personal for her, it does make sense. And I do like that. And as she tells the doctor, it's like, what is your, like, why do you want to become a huntress? What is your goal? Essentially, I've spent way too much of my life being a bystander, and there's too much genuinely awful shit that happens. And someone needs to do something about it. I don't know what I will actually be able to do, but I want to try my damnedest and I don't want to run anymore. And I think that's all really good. Then you get Jank. My favorite non-fight scene between the first two volumes, possibly amongst all three volumes, like I'll have a better grip on that when I finish volume 3, is Jank explaining to Blake her backstory. Of like, okay, Blake, I know this is personal for you. I know you're working hard. You need to slow down. You don't need to stop. You need to slow down. You need to be able to recharge. You need to take care of yourself. Let me tell you a story. I have two moms. There's Summer Rose, who's Ruby's mom, who was the woman who raised me, and she's like the coolest fucking person in the world, and I adore her. And when she never came back, and we assume she died, and I genuinely have no idea if that's a thing in later seasons where you find out that her mom is actually alive. That could be, I don't know, it's possible. But anyway. Sorry. She's like, yeah, and then when I learned, like, when she was presumed dead, I learned she wasn't the first woman my dad had loved and lost. That woman, Raven, was my mother. And when I learned that there was who had abandoned me and him, like, when I was born. And when I learned that I had more family out there, I just wanted to find her. Like, any little scrap of information I could get, I had to follow. So one day, when I had a lead, I followed it. And, like, I had to look after Ruby that day, so I took my little baby sister with me in a little wagon. And we went down the trail, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked, until I couldn't walk anymore, and then I still kept going. And I found, like, the place that I was looking for, and it was infested with Grimm. And I was too tired to defend, I was too young to be able to fight back, and too tired to try to escape, and I realized that my stupidity and my stubbornness was not only going to get me killed, it was going to get my sister killed too. And then our Uncle Crow showed up, and he saved our asses, and I'm so fucking glad he did. But I learned something that day. There are limits. I have not given up looking for my mom, but I have slowed down because I understand what my limits are, and I have to keep them in mind. I really, really like that scene. I love the art style used there. It just looks so good. It's so pretty, but is also, like, genuinely creepy. Like, it actually looks like a picture book. Like, this is what you would find in, like, the really kind of scary part of a picture book where the kids get lost in the woods and then the wolves are all on the prowl and shit. I'm like, that's so sick. It's like, I don't want to be the guy that's like, man, I wish the series looked like this instead of how it looks, because I do really like the look of the show. But I kind of would have dug, like, the picture book style. And when the doc asks her, like, Yang, why do you want to be a huntress? To which she says, I'm going to be honest, I'm a thrill seeker. I don't, like, my sister is the one that actually wants to save the world. She is the one who, when she was a kid, said, I want to help people. And that's never changed for her. And I appreciate that. I respect the shit out of my sister for how, like, sincere and pure she is. But that's just not me. I just want to go on adventures. I just want to go find cool shit. I want to fight cool shit. Being a huntress just sounded like the easiest way to do it. That's it. And I actually kind of like that. I do like how one of the main characters is like, look, I don't care about helping people. I should. The fact that I don't makes me feel like maybe there's something wrong with me, but I guess I'm my mother's daughter, and I kind of dig that. Hey, Bob, you coming to sit with me for a bit? Aw, sweet boy. After that is Weiss, who I talked about one of the bits of her character where there's a love triangle where John really likes her. I guess it's more, I mean, you can expand that, where it's Pyrrha really likes John, who really likes Weiss, who really likes Neptune, who just really likes girls in general, but is like, yeah, I can fuck with Weiss. And I think it's fine. I don't think it's the most interesting thing, but John failing for her, I do think is pretty funny. The other part of her character is, like, her reason for wanting to be a huntress is, I have to uphold my family name, my family honor. And at first, the way she explains it is, like, you know, it's kind of like a noblesse oblige thing. Like, you know, I'm part of the Schnee family, which, again, every time I say it, it sounds like some Dr. Seuss shit. But it's like, I'm part of this very well-known family, this high-profile family, very wealthy family. And I realized that I could fight, I can throw hands and magic. And if I can do that, that is a way that I can give back to the community. It's a way that I can help the world. So, as a Schnee, if I can do something, I have to do something. And that's how I will uphold the family honor. And then as it goes on a little bit more, she's like, okay, like, I'm not lying when I say I want to uphold my family honor. It's more that my dad is such a piece of shit that I feel like he tarnished the family name. And it bothers me how much people hate my family and my family name because of what my father did. And if I can restore some regality and some honor to that name by being a huntress and helping people, then that's something I want to do. And what I really like about all of this is we're now seeing the character trailers coming to fruition. Blake and leaving the White Fang, we're seeing how that affected her and kind of the guilt complex she has for not doing more to help them and to deal with Adam. With Yang, we're now getting her talking about her mom, and this is the person I'm trying to find and what my end goal is. And Weiss and her difficulty with her family. The only one we don't get anything with is RWBY, because we see RWBY first, like in the red trailer, at her mom's grave, and it's not RWBY that brings up that her mom is dead, it's Yang. RWBY doesn't really say anything about her mom until the start of season 3. But what they do with RWBY is kind of like I was saying earlier, really emphasize how she's the leader of the team. She's the one that kind of comes up with the plan. She's the one that comes up with the combo fights in fight, like the combo plans in fights. Also, like there's a part where the doctor's like, cool, who wants first watch? RWBY immediately volunteers, and you kind of get that sense like, yeah, I'm the leader. Let me take the first shift, which is something that makes a lot of sense to me. She's the one who does a lot of the recon. Like during that part, she's like, okay, I'm gonna let my teammates sleep. Or no, at first it's the dog kind of runs off, so she does that and is like, oh shit, there's people around, I gotta do recon. And what I did like about that was as soon as she's kind of done with her recon, she's like, I need to call my friends because they need to know what the fuck is going on and where I am. And it's like, thank you for not just saying, I'm gonna keep exploring. Now she ends up losing service and getting, like, shit happens. But I'm like, that's not quite your fault. You made the right plays, so I have nothing to hold against you here. And also during the dance, she's like, I'm not, like, really doing anything. Like, I didn't go with anyone because I didn't want to. I want to get out of this fucking dress and heels, this ass. Okay, someone over there is being sus. I need to go deal with this. And I like that. After that, you got Team Juniper, which is John really liking Weiss. There is this fun, funny scene where he's outside the door, like their dorm room, and he has a fucking guitar and is like, Weiss-Schnee, will you go to the dance with me? And then just closes the door. Weiss, can you just open the door? Please. I promise not to sing. I lie. It's like, I got a kick out of that one. And then she slams the door in his face again, which again, I think is fully justified on her end. You've got that. I think there is at least like one scene where you do see him training with Pyrrha, and it is implied that, like, yeah, they've been doing this for a while. It's going well. And by the end of the season, she's like, cool, John is able to take care of himself. You get a conversation between the two of them where Pyrrha's making it very clear how much she likes him, and John is too oblivious to pick up on it and is also too smitten with the Schnee to also pick up on it. Where he's like, dude, Pyrrha, you're so cool. Like, you're so cool. You're so badass. Like, I bet you've got, like, a gajillion guys who want to ask you out. And, like, you know, like, I can't wait to see the guy that, like, that you snag, because you got your pick of the litter. I bet he's so fucking cool. I can't wait to see him. And she's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I might go alone. Like, if you can't get a date, I will show up in a dress. Like, there's no way that's gonna happen. And then they have a conversation later when she doesn't have a date, and he's really confused. She's like, look, here's the thing. Yes, admittedly, I'm very cool. Like, I'm a very good fighter. I'm someone with a lot of renown. To the point where people are too intimidated. It's like people respect me and idolize me so much that I'm out of reach. And I hate it because it means I can't form meaningful connections. And that's why your friendship means so much to me. You had no idea who the fuck I was. And then when it was explained to you, your response wasn't, whoa, you're so cool, I can't hang out with you. Your response was, holy shit, I've seen you on a cereal box, which I completely forgot to mention in Fun Shit in Volume 1. Like, that is actually really adorable. Both him recognizing her for that and the fact that she was on fucking... See you later, Bran Flakes. What a nice cereal box. I really appreciate that. I'm like, it reminds me of Greek mythology, but it's the story of Psyche, you know, this woman who was so beautiful that people, I believe, like, worshipped her as if they were worshipping Aphrodite, which I think ended up pissing off Aphrodite. But because she was so beautiful, everyone thought she was out of their league, so they actually didn't try to do anything with her, so she ended up becoming super lonely. It's Greek mythology, of course. It's a really fucking sad story. But I kind of appreciated that illusion. And then you have Nora and Ren, who are also here, and don't really do much in this season. Yeah, they just don't really do much in this season. But then the dance happens, and John sees that Pyrrha doesn't have a date, and Weiss asked out Neptune, and he said no because he's so cool and he can't dance. He doesn't want to look like dog shit. And John's like, you would rather break a girl's heart than make an ass out of yourself? Yeah? Huh. Well, you're kind of an asshole. You should maybe go fix that and talk to her. Okay. See you, dude. And then he goes and wears a dress. He's like, look, I said if you couldn't get a date, I would show up in a dress, so, a deal's a deal. And like that, I liked that a lot. I thought that was adorable. Like I said, in Season 1, I could not stand John. Season 2, like, no, I actually kind of like this dude, and that continues into Season 3 as well. Other characters. I already talked about Neapolitan. She's fucking awesome. Torchwick, I don't really have anything to say about him here that I didn't say in Season 1. He just steals the show every time he's on screen. He's just on screen more in Season 2, so there's just more scenery for him to chew, and it's great. It's fantastic. Sun and Neptune. Sun doesn't do a whole lot. I just like him, though. I just kind of like this dude. I like how chill he is. The fact that he, like, doesn't really wear a shirt, I think, is funny. He's like, I don't want to show up to the dance. I don't want to have to wear a fucking tie. That's dog shit. But he does anyways. His crush on Blake, I think, is pretty cute. I know that ain't going nowhere, but I think it's fine. Neptune, like I said, I just think he's kind of boring. I don't think he's particularly funny. You don't really see him fight. So I'm like, dude, this guy is so badass. He's just the cool guy, and that's kind of it. He's kind of like the blue M&M. Penny, I just think she's neat. She's just the robot girl who is like, yeah, I'm a robot. I hope that doesn't make us not friends anymore. And Ruby's like, dude, you're a robot. I didn't know that could even be a thing, but that's so fucking cool. Like, you are 100% my friend. I just like her. And then, Cinder, Emerald, and Mercury, I don't really have much to say about them. I feel like a lot of this is like they're working on the prep for their plans, but you don't really know a lot about what they're doing. I feel like I'll have more to say about them come Volume 3, but I feel like in Volume 2, like, they're okay, but like the little bit I actually kind of see of them fighting, I think is pretty cool. And the last characters to really talk about are Ozpin and Ironwood. And this is something that I'm going to say now instead of in Volume 3. I might repeat it again. But their conflict, I think, is actually kind of interesting. To look at it from the perspective of 59 minutes already, fuck. Looking at it from the perspective of a game of chess, both of them realize there are forces out there that want to fuck with us, and that they have people in the school trying to do something, especially once Cinder's infiltration happens. Like, cool, there's a problem here. How do we handle it? Ozpin's perspective is, we wait. Don't act too rashly. Think of this as a game of chess. You're not going to send the whole army in first. You're kind of going to poke and prod a little bit and try to find an opening. Don't send all of your people to deal with the opening, because then you're leaving your flank open. I don't want to fall for the feint and fall victim to the end game. I don't want to overcommit until I can tell what the end game is. Ironwood's perspective is, if we crush them now in their opening moves, there's no end game for them to develop. I don't want to just sit and wait, and as I'm waiting, they're getting stronger and stronger, and their pieces are getting closer into my board in a much better position than I am. And I feel like there is some merit to both perspectives, but I personally do kind of find it annoying how the guy who's, everyone's like, we trust him so much, he's so intelligent, he's so wise and everything, who essentially his strategy is, let's do nothing. And then eventually come Volume 3, it's like, oh, we were way too late to do anything. Now, it's not that Ironwood necessarily helped, because his shit in Volume 3 gets hacked. And at that point, like, well, you're not really helping us either there, Jimbo, are ya? But at the same time, I'm like, it's like, given what happens, because even then, like, as Ozpin is saying, he's like, who do you send in first, James? Do you send in the, like, full army, or do you send in the scouts? And be like, hey, like, essentially what he's saying is, let's not overcommit to this really small force, but also he's not really doing anything to stop the scouts. That's a problem. And then as they find out, they're like, oh, like, one of those scouts is the fucking Autumn Maiden. Oh, we shouldn't have let them get in this far deep. Like, yeah, you fucking think? Like, it's kind of like I was saying in Season 1. Like, Ozpin is supposed to be Dumbledore, essentially, but he doesn't leave enough of an impression. And then when I'm watching Volume 2 and Volume 3, I'm like, I don't know if he's really doing a great job. Now, you can argue that Dumbledore doesn't have the best track record ever. Or, like, either. He's also, like, not... Whenever big shit is happening, it's usually because he's away. Which you can make an argument, yeah, they specifically need Dumbledore gone to be able to do anything. It's kind of like Trails in the Sky, where the only reason the plan in FC works is because Campanella was an Erebonia doing shit that was so big, Cassius Bright could not be in Liberl anymore. Like, we need to get him out of the country, because if he's here, everything is going to shit. Okay, cool, he's out of the country, now our plan can work. Which is ludicrous. Like, that's how badass Cassius is. Dumbledore is kind of similar. It feels like they really have to work around him, the villains do, for their plans to work. With Ozpin, it's not really. Like, yeah, we're just kind of under his nose, and he's not doing anything. Wow, this is really fucking easy. So whenever characters, especially Crow, because it feels like the majority of his dialogue in Season 3, which, I mean, it's not like he has dialogue in Season 1 or 2, he's not introduced to Season 3, is either A, interacting with his nieces, which I fucking love, I really like their relationship, or it's, Ozpin is so fucking cool, I can't believe you guys don't trust him. Wow, James. Wow, Winter. The fact that you would do this means you don't trust Oz. And I'm like, from what I've seen, I kind of don't disagree with them, dude. Like, can you form your own opinions, or are you actually just his puppet? Like, that's kind of how it feels. And it makes, I mean, I'll talk about Crow more in actually Volume 3, but I'm like, I feel like this is a character I want to like, but I just kinda don't. But that's really all I have to say for the characters in Volume 2. So getting on to the jank, most of which I've already talked about. I talked about Coco in the finale, that was kind of weird. I talked about them not telling Osmond anything, that was kind of weird. There's a bunch of fights in the opening. I still haven't said anything about the opening. The Volume 1 opening is fucking amazing. The Volume 2 opening is... I don't think I like it quite as much. So I think literally I heard the opening to Volume 1, and I was like, I need to watch this show. And that's why I watched RWBY the first time. Volume 2's opening... It goes from like a 10 out of 10 to like a 9.5 out of 10. It's like, it doesn't hit quite as hard, but I think it's really good. And Volume 3's like just that starting with that piano riff right into like the rock. I'm like, that's fucking tasty shit. But it shows these fights in the opening where it's like, oh, RWBY fighting Cinder, which is like, it kind of happens, but not really. So I feel disappointed. It shows, I think, Yang fighting Mercury, which doesn't happen in Volume 2. It shows Weiss fighting Emerald, which just 3 seasons in doesn't happen. And then it shows Blake fighting Torchwick, which kind of happens, but it's really underwhelming. So I'm like, yeah, like I'm watching the opening, like, okay, here's some fights to look forward to. Oh, never mind. There's also this one scene where we're talking about, like, the enemies are gathering and shit, and it shows Cinder, Mercury, Emerald, I think it showed Torchwick too, I don't remember. But then also shows Junior and the twins from the Yellow trailer. I'm like, oh, I guess they're gonna do something. Nope. No, they don't. They're just in the opening and don't actually do anything. I'm like, what? Opening? Why are you lying to me? Why? There's no reason for this. I'm gonna watch you anyways. I'm still gonna get hyped. But you're building up shit that just doesn't happen? Yeah. I don't really care for that. So after Yang gets her ass beat by Neapolitan, excuse me, she ends up getting saved by this masked mysterious stranger, who at the very end of the season is revealed to look exactly like Yang, just with black hair and red eyes, and I really like Raven's color palette, and she's not name dropped at this, but we're like, oh, that's most likely Yang's mom. And literally, like, the stinger of season 2 is Yang approaching this masked figure, her taking off the mask and saying, Yang, we have a lot to talk about. And I remember watching that the first time and going, oh shit, she found her mom. This is going to be really cool. I can't wait to see what this does for Yang's character. Like, is she now going to leave the academy because she's like, I found my mom, I'm good. We're going on adventures now. Bye. Is her mom gonna start helping them and do cool shit? Is her mom an enemy? Because she's kind of looks like she's wearing a white fang mask. Like, her mom might be a fucking problem. I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes, and it doesn't. They never follow up on that conversation in Volume 3. You never get, like, a flashback of, this is what my mom told me. The closest you get is a scene where Yang talks to Crow, but, like, yeah, my mom saved me, and that's it. And then Crow's like, oh yeah, she gave me a message, which was, I saved you once, I'm not gonna do it again, like, you need to toughen up and shit. And I'm like, okay. But Yang had a conversation with her mom. Did we just forget that? Is this like the opening where you're teasing shit that doesn't actually happen? Because in the opening, it's like, that's a little annoying, but it's not awful. Here, this is literally how you ended season 2. Like, this is what you can expect for season 3. We're gonna follow up on this. And now you're just pretending that it didn't happen. What the fuck? What? I don't like that. I think it's jank as fuck. And the last bit of jank is why the dog. I said that this season looks a lot better. The models look like, they look sharper. They just look better. The actual movements and shit look better. And then there's the dog. The dog looks awful. Like, I was laughing whenever I saw the dog. It was like, I remember saying to myself, like, oh my god, I forgot about the dog. It looks bad. This is so fucking funny. And every time it was on screen, I was just taken out of what I was watching. Which I will say, I mean, that's the thing about season 2. Like, I was very rarely taken out of it. Again, there were, like, these kind of jank moments is when it happened. But I felt like consistently, like, I'm in this. This is so much better. I am invested. And then that fucking dog is there, and I'm like, oh, no, this is this is disgusting. But that's it for the jank. So let's just get to some of the fun shit. Some of which I know I've talked about. Like, the whole food fight is fun as fuck. I love it. There's a line in episode 1 where Cinder's giving Mercury and Emerald to Torchwick for something. Like, they're talking, and he's like, oh, look, she's leaving me with the kids. It's just like the divorce. And I got a great laugh out of that. I love everyone calling Weiss the Ice Queen. Even Torchwick calls her that at one point. There's a scene where they're in the library playing Risk. Or something closer, like it's a card game, but it's all about conquering the world and shit. And I love Weiss just going, I don't know what this is. I don't understand. And Yang go, okay, that's what you gotta do. Let me explain real quick. With the cards you have, do this shit, it's fantastic. Okay. Yes, I have now taken over the world. I am your god. Actually, you activated my trap card, Ice Queen. Get fucked. I'm like, that was great. That whole Risk shit was just really funny to me. There's a scene when they all go, or it's not a scene, it's like for a couple episodes where they all go out to get information on shit. They're wearing different outfits. It's not the school uniform or their regular outfits. They just all look really nice and comfy. Like, Weiss is wearing this like comfy looking kind of sweatery dress. I was like, these just look nice. Kind of wish we saw those outfits a little bit more. The thing with the White Fang, the reason they wear grim masks is like, you know, if they see us as monsters, that's what we'll be. I kind of liked that. I mentioned John, like, singing for Weiss, and it made me laugh. There's a scene where Yang is trying to get Blake's attention, so she uses a laser pointer, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, okay, she's using a laser pointer on a cat girl. Is that racist? Is it? I don't know. Maybe Blake didn't call her out for it, and Blake feels like the kind of person that would, so I will assume it wasn't racist, so then I can laugh, because the fact that worked is pretty fucking funny. I mentioned this in Volume 1, but the scene where John is trying to talk to Ren about, like, how to get girls to like you and shit. He's like, Ren, you're so cool. You're like, dude, I love you, man. You're like one of my best friends of all time. You don't say much. I kind of like that. But I also know nothing about you as a person or your history. But you're still like the brother I never had, as Ren just wants to fucking put on his shirt. And he's like, John, I feel the same way about you. I really giggled at that shit. I did mention, like, the art style when Yang is giving her backstory is really fucking good. I really like the friendship between Ruby and John. Like how there's no romance, there's no, like, sexual undertones or anything. They're just homies. They just enjoy each other's company. They just know, like, they can rely on each other even though they're not teammates. All they fucking do in season 4. I just like that bond. I think it's really nice. I do like the part when after John gives his speech to Neptune, which, like, I feel like that whole scene is kind of weird. But I do like after it's like, you know what, John? Thanks for giving me this speech. You're a really cool guy. And John's immediate response is, you don't have to lie to my face. I liked that. Him showing up in the dress with Pyrrha and then Team Juniper, like, busting a move on the dance floor. That's really fun. I was grinning the whole time. Velvet has a British accent. It just kind of activated all my neurons. I was like, oh, I love this. This is adorable, and I need more of this. I need more of you in this show, and got a little bit more in Volume 3. And then, like, her bit in the climax, I do think is really, really fucking cool. So there's this... It's like these two little bits of conversation that happen with the doctor. So he says some shit about, you know, we gotta be tough, we gotta be vigilant, there might be some tussles. Tussles? Like the mushroom? Those are truffles. Like the sprout? Those are Brussels. It's it's a dumb little bit of dialogue, but it made me laugh. I liked it. Here's my problem with it, though. It has nothing to do with the actual wordplay. It's the kind of thing that is like, okay, Brussels sprouts. We call them that. My understanding is like it's because of how popular they are in Brussels from Belgium. Does Belgium exist in Remnant? Is this a thing where, like, Remnant is actually Earth, and it's, like, a post-apocalyptic or, like, a future version of Earth? Because I've seen the map, and it does not look like Earth. But now you're referencing real-world things. Like, there's a line in Volume 3 that's very similar, where Crow is like, hey, where they're like, hey, we're hot shit. Look at what we did in Season 2. And Crow's like, no, you're not hot shit. You didn't stop the train. You didn't kill all the Grimm in the city. Other people had to bail you out. You did a decent job, like, for where you are as first-year students, but don't get too ahead of yourself. You almost succeeded. They don't give out medals for almost, to which RWBY says, they're called silver, which I think is a funny line, but then I'm also like, okay, silver medals, so the Olympics. Do they have Olympics in Remnant? Like, I get the joke, and I think the joke is fun, but it's the kind of thing that makes me start to question the world a little bit. And I know I'm probably, like, yes, is that a nitpick? Sure. Is that overanalyzing something? Sure. But it's something I've become a lot more cognizant of in both my own writing and pretty much because I've been more cognizant of it in my own writing. I'm like, okay, if this is a story that does not take place on Earth, that this is not supposed to be a modern setting, my characters need to, like, they can't talk in modern slang or lingo. And they can't reference real world events or games or, like, phrases. Now, granted, it's like, yeah, they all fucking speak English, and you can make an argument about that. It's like, well, in that case, why don't you make your own fucking language? Like, well, I don't want to. But if it's something where it's like a phrase or an idiom or a word, like, for example, like, I wouldn't have a character start saying sus, because that basically comes from Among Us. Like, it's something that is so strongly related to something from our world that it does not make sense in one of these scenarios. That's the kind of things I'm talking about. Like, I could believe that Brussels sprouts exist in RWBY, but they wouldn't call them Brussels sprouts, you know? And it's one of those little things where I'm like, that, most people probably don't care. I still laughed. But it raises a question that I know it's not supposed to. And that's me being super anal. I get it. But it's still there. And the only other thing is the doctor's like, hey, everyone, leave all your shit. We're not even going to make proper camps. Let's just go. And RWBY brings her bag anyways because her fucking dog is in there. And then later, the professor's like, okay, girls, you need to listen to everything I say because it is life or death out there. And regardless of what you might think of me, I am still your teacher. And I have both the mission and our safety in mind. Do not hesitate to listen to what I say. Okay? Okay. So they land. He sees RWBY's bag and is like, why the fuck did you bring your bag? Like, I told you not to bring your bag, didn't I? Yes, but you didn't tell us to listen to you yet, so I didn't. You're right, I didn't tell you to listen to me yet. Fair enough. And I remember going, okay, that's actually a really funny response from RWBY. I don't think that should have worked, though. Because, like, yeah, he didn't give his order to, like, you need to listen to me, but, I mean, it's still, like, this is your chaperone. This is, like, the person you're shadowing. And a teacher, it's kind of implied that you would have to fucking listen to him. Again, it's one of those things where, like, the line is genuinely funny, but actually looking at it, I'm like, I feel like the teacher should have been mad and, like, not let her get away with that. Granted, that doesn't mean he has to, like, immediately send her back to the school or anything, but she should probably be reprimanded for that instead of, clever, I'll allow it. Oh, you brought your dog with you. Genius. Which, granted, again, that one's, like, in context, like, okay, you brought a dog. A dog can be really helpful, like, for tracking and shit. that makes sense. But like, yeah, but she didn't bring her dog because of that. She brought her dog because she didn't want to be without it. She shouldn't be getting rewarded for this interaction. I like RWBY's character a lot, but that's one of those, like, that one kind of rubs me the wrong way. I'll give it a bit of a pass because it did make me laugh, but I don't know how much I liked that. But overall, that's Volume 2. Short, condensed version. I like it a lot. I think it's definitely better than Season 1. It looks better. Maybe quite doesn't sound better, but the soundtrack is like about the same quality. I think the character writing for the most part is a lot stronger. I'd say I'm really looking forward to Volume 3, but I've already seen it, so it's just Volume 3. I feel like for the most part, that sense of improvement and building continues in Volume 3.